us to wait also with expectant hope, that as we stand on the threshold of a new year, it will be one with a brighter and more prosperous future for all of us who inhabit this our beloved island. As a government under the leadership of the Honorable Victor Banks, we have been called to serve this nation under very trying and difficult circumstances. But we thank you especially for the calm and humble repose of our leader in the face of so much criticism. We thank you for the leader of the opposition and her colleague for the service they to render to the people of this island. Daily, O God, we are tested and tried, but we ask that you grant us the strength, the faith, the courage that can only come from you. We seek your wisdom, your guidance, and your understanding, as we have pledged publicly serve the present age our calling to fulfill. The task before us is a very challenging one, particularly during these austere financial times. But we depend upon you that where there is a will, you will help us to find a way. Father God, we ask a blessing upon all gathered here this evening, and that all that is done here may be done in order to bring honor and glory to your holy name. Grant us your peace through Jesus Christ, our Lord and Savior. Amen.
Thank you. Please be seated. Confirmation of minutes, none. Oaths of allegiance, none. Announcements by the direction of the speaker.
Yeah, I would just like to welcome all those in our gallery today. You know, you're always welcome to come here to observe the proceedings. Thank you.
Papers, none. Reports from committees, none. Petitions, none. Government notices,
Mr. Speaker, I beg move of the House to your indulgence to present a government notice under Section 17 of the Rules and Procedures for the meeting of the House of Assembly tomorrow at 9:30 to deal with a very urgent matter. I will have to also beg the indulgence of the Leader of the Opposition to work along with us on this matter, Mr. Speaker. It has been to the House before, but because the time has elapsed and the critical nature of getting this done as swiftly as possible, I would like to have a meeting of the House of Assembly to remove a resolution on the Financial Administration and Audit Remission Regulations Act tomorrow at 9:30 in the morning. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you.
unofficial notices, none. Questions, none. Motions, none. Other business, government business, Appropriation Bill 2017, Appropriation 2017 Bill 2016, first reading.
Mr. Speaker, I beg that you call upon the clerk to the first reading to the Appropriations Bill 2016.
The Appropriation 2017 Act 2016, first reading. A bill to provide for the services of the government of Anguilla for the financial year ending the 31st day of December 2017. The Appropriation 2017 Bill 2016, second reading.
Mr. Speaker, I beg the move of this honorable House to call for the clerk to do the second reading of the Appropriation 2017 Bill 2016.
Speaker, the members...
Speaker, I
should-
beg
should-
move that this honorable House, that the appropriation 2017 bill 2016 be read a second time.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to second that.
Speaker, I beg your indulgence to give me an opportunity to set up my contraption. It has become a tradition in this honorable House to use this small podium to introduce the budget address. Mr. Speaker, this is the second budget address that I have the privilege to present since the election of the Anguilla United Front team as the new government of Anguilla on April 22nd, 2015. It is, however, the 17th budget address that I will be delivering over the years that I have served as Minister of Finance in the past governments of Anguilla. The extremely critical challenges that we are addressing over the past 20 months to restore a level of stability for the economic takeoff of our island have been grueling. And as to be expected, it has resulted in many casualties along the way. It has affected, Mr. Speaker, many persons directly in terms of loss of jobs, business opportunities, property and other assets, family plans, and so on. But, Mr. Speaker, we must not give up hope. Hope is a singular asset that has sustained our people over the years, and I do not expect that we would depart from that pillar of our national character at this juncture in our history. Mr. Speaker, I rebuke those purveyors of doom and gloom who seem to take both pleasure and a sense of victory in telling us that our country cannot survive. We have done it before, and we will do it again. Yes, we can. Mr. Speaker, last year we were focusing on bringing our island back on a strong path towards fiscal and economic stability. A key challenge was the resolution of the indigenous banks. While this is still a work in progress, I would like to commend customers, management and staff, and other stakeholders for their understanding, support, patience, and tolerance in the many decisions that had to be made bearing in mind the greater good. Another important private sector initiative was to resolve the Captain Luca dispute. I'm happy to report that even though there were a number of setbacks over the past 8 months, we are within striking distance of the sale and unification of the property. And in fact, Mr. Speaker, the notice that I gave just a few minutes ago will affect that sale and unification. It has been a very complex undertaking that required innovation and sacrifice. We will speak more about this later. As I continue to say on every practical occasion, all of these initiatives will be sustainable when the underlying economy is robust and capable of fulfilling the requirements for growth and success, namely, increased jobs, business opportunities, investment and training. These have been the core elements of our mantra upon seeking the support of the people of Anguilla in the last election. We do not intend to depart from these core imperatives. Mr. Speaker, once again, let's get started. It would be almost unpatriotic of me as I deliver the budget speech on on the eve of the 50th anniversary of the Anguilla Revolution, not to make this an opportunity for reflection. We have therefore settled on the theme around which we will construct our presentation, namely celebration and realignment. This idea is to accentuate the positive aspects of the last 50 years and make adjustments to the path of the early vision. Mr. Speaker, the 30th of May 2017 is fast approaching. And on that day, we will be celebrating the 50th anniversary of the birth of modern Angola. It is going to be a momentous occasion as we pay tribute to the Anguilla Revolution. The Anguilla Revolution does not rank as highly as the great revolutions that the world has seen, but it is our revolution, and we must always own and embrace it. The Time magazine referred to it as the mouse that roared, and if the media, social and otherwise, in those days were as it is today, it certainly would have been a highly publicized international incident. As I said, Mr. Speaker, it was our revolution. It had its own goals and objectives, and we must continue to honor and remember the efforts of our revolutionary leader, the Honorable James Ronald Webster. His name is permanently etched in history because of his dedication to the cause of the Anguillan people. I also salute the other stalwarts and heroes of the revolution who are still with us. I can only imagine the pride that will be stirred in their hearts on the 30th of May 2017. In their honor, Mr. Speaker, I beg your indulgence to observe a moment of silence for all those stalwarts of the revolution who have moved on to the great beyond. Mr. Speaker, I beg your indulgence to ask everyone to stand just for a moment. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, those brave men and women, some mere youth, did not have any grandiose ideology. Their message was simple, yet very powerful, and I quote, "We want a better life for the people of Angola, and we are not going to get it if we become a part of the state of St. Kitts, Nevis, and Anguilla," unquote. This modest mantra was captured in what I will call the revolutionary anthem. I quote, "We are out to build a new Anguilla." Mr. Speaker, they may not have had any grandiose revolutionary ideology, but they were totally dedicated to their beliefs, and I truly believe that they were willing to give up their lives for the cause. The day when the members of the Royal St. Kitts Christopher Nevis Anguilla Police Force were expelled marked the beginning of a 50-year journey. And like most journeys, there have been peaks and valleys. But this is not a history lesson, Mr. Speaker. But at this juncture, there seems to be an appropriate place for this reminder in its address. It is not unusual for activists to be vilified by those who are the targets of their activism. Modern Angola will be 50 years old next year. This is a good time to highlight some of the facts and even the perceptions of that valiant period in our national history. Mr. Speaker, Anguilla may not have been totally, and Anguillians may not have been totally clear on what path was to be followed, but it was clear that the statehood route was not an option. Anguillians knew very clearly what they did not want. There was distrust in being governed from Bastille, and Angola's record in terms of economic and social progress was so dismal that it fueled this distrust. Premier Robert Bradshaw was viewed as a larger-than-life figure who had no positive intentions for Angola. Whether or not it is a myth or a fact, some unkind statements concerning Angola were attributed to Premier Bradshaw, and this served to strengthen the resolve of the freedom fighters, because Premier Bradshaw was credited as having said, and I quote, "I will not rest until I have reduced that place, Angola, to a desert," unquote. So, Mr. Speaker, a 50-year journey began on 30th May 1967. And after a period of administration with much interaction with London and its representatives, Angola was invaded by Britain the 19th of March 1969. The objective of restoring law and order was overstated, and history has recorded that Angola's revolution was a bloodless one, even when law and order was in the hands of the interim police force on Angola. So not for the last time, Mr. Speaker, Britain would have made a misjudgment on Angola. There was absolutely no need for such a show of force. The invasion was described as the Britain's Bay of Piglets, the paper blitzkrieg, and war in a teacup by pundits critical and cynical of the show of force shown by the British government. The invaders were welcomed with open arms, so that there was no reason absolutely for the British to escalate that war in a teacup. The Angola Revolution, in the sense of a potential armed conflict, was now over. Angola would not be a part of the state of Cincus Nevis Angola, but essentially a colony of Great Britain. The Angola Revolution re-established strong, essentially colonial ties with Britain. And the hope was that now that Bradshaw was gone, there would be economic and social progress for the Angolan people. That was the hope, Mr. Speaker. And it is from that backdrop now that we must examine whether we are celebrating longevity or, in fact, tangible achievements, and the extent to which there is need for realignment. Reaching an important milestone in terms of longevity is always an achievement, and that in itself is a reason to celebrate. Therefore, Angola at 50 in of itself is the reason to recognize outstanding Angolans and organize a number of cultural and educational events. The Rhondda Island Boat Race is a staple among Angolan Day activities, but next year there will be an extended focus on some educational aspects of the last 50 years, the extent to which the revolution has shaped and continued to shape our lives. Mr. Speaker, we do not live our lives in the abstract. We need our senses of touch, smell, feel, taste, sight, and the like to be stimulated by positive experiences. And over the last 50 years, Angola has afforded those opportunities. Our airport, seaports, electricity, roads, homes, vehicles, planes, clothes, food, lights, and many other things have been modernized and improved upon tremendously, so that the extent that they existed 50 years ago, there is actually no comparison today. I know that that does not exhaust our physical achievements, but I'm sure everyone gets the point, Mr. Speaker. On the human development side, no longer are top legal and health professionals and other professionals out of reach for Angolans. 50 years ago, there were few Angolans who pursued studies in those areas in Angola, but today, Angola is turning out lawyers and doctors and other professionals at a rate that belies its small population. In general, Mr. Speaker, tertiary education for Angolans is no longer a novelty, but an expectation. expectation for most high school graduates. We hold our own at the best universities and colleges around the world and are respected by our peers at all levels of academia. We are small, but we pack a heavy punch. We have set the bar high, so we expect a lot from ourselves. Mr. Speaker, there is no greater sporting event than the Olympic Games. And Little Anguilla have had a two-time participant, albeit for Great Britain. No change of allegiance can truly change her Anguillianness because she was nurtured right here on the rock. There is no level of cricket higher than Test cricket. And Anguillan has also made it to the pinnacle in that sport as well. Mr. Speaker, when 50 years ago is the benchmark, Anguilla is indeed a modern and progressive society. Our economy, Mr. Speaker, has evolved from one strongly reliant on remittances, subsistence agriculture, and fishing into one that is dominated by tourism and construction for the most part. Another notable fact is that the women of Anguilla are no longer, for lack of a better word, marginalized in the workplace, perhaps like 50 years ago. They are well represented professionally in Anguilla, and after all, they did play an important role in the revolution, and they are playing an important role today. Mr. Speaker, over the last 50 years, we learned how to use financial institutions to help better our quality of life. In a budget address many years ago, I spoke of how we no longer place our savings under the bed, but we are now patronizing our financial institutions. Please resist the temptation to say that we should have left them under the bed. That would be totally ignore the great contribution that our banks have made to the improvement of our lives, the creation of prosperity, and the empowerment of our people. Mr. Speaker, in an address such as this, it makes no sense to try and give minute details of activities that would underpin the realignment. We are who we are, an overseas territory of Britain, at least for the time being. In a speech I gave at the third biennial National Development Conference in 2007, I said that our own Dr. Aidan Harrigan, currently the Permanent Secretary of Finance, in a paper he presented at the second biennial National Conference in 2005, reflected that, and I quote, "The fact that Anguilla was essentially a nuisance colony, as he coined it, has influenced where we are today, in the sense that having been neglected by the colonial power for most of the period between 1650 and 1957, Anguillians had to survive by their wits, which has engendered a strong individual streak in us as a people. But this can be a double-edged sword, because there are times when individual interests are best pursued through cooperative means. This does not mean that individual interests are subjugated. Far from it. It just means that the realization that they are better served, those interests are better served by pooling our resources and coming together. Mr. Speaker, that quotation was relevant then and may have even increased in relevance now that this must be an important part of the realignment process to which I referred. It now sounds like a bit of a cliche to say we must come together. But in coming together, we must settle on our goals and objectives in terms of national development. I've always been an advocate for social transformation in a quest to understand the relationship between governance and development. Quote Clive Thomas of the University of Guyana, who advocates a social capital-oriented path to development. And this is an ideology that I believe must be a critical part of our realignment. We refer to things like it is humane, development must be humane. meaning it elevates social concerns over individual gains and losses. It must be sustainable. That is, its time horizon is oriented to future generations. It must be empowering, meaning that it is not based on exploitation, but empowerment. Must be synergistic. It affects and is affected by all areas of social life. It must be catalytic. It must be an agent of change. It must be mobilizing. It must help to develop the energies of society. It must be accountable and responsible. It must emphasize sharing and trust. It must be concerned with both development and distribution of benefits of development. And its accumulation must be driven from below because of its social character. Mr. Speaker, in our relationship with Britain, governance is always high on the agenda, as in the policy framework for fiscal responsibility and other initiatives. Good governance must be about generating optimal outcomes in terms of sustainable human development. So we need to examine to what extent we have been a party to good governance in the wider socio-economic developmental context. With that, Mr. Speaker, I turn to an economic and fiscal review of our economy in 2015. Mr. Speaker, let us place our discussions in context by first reviewing the state of our economy in 2015, that is last year, as the state of the economy underpins everything that transpires in Anguilla. I'm pleased to say that we in Anguilla experienced another year of progress, another year of steady growth, another year of Anguilla rising, as we, like the rest of the world, continue on our road to recovery. Last year, Mr. Speaker, our economy grew in real terms by a modest 2.81%. This is a respectable and sustainable level of growth for our small nation. This 2.81% compounds growth of 5.16% of the previous year and 0.5% the year before that. Growth, compounding growth. Compounding growth for 3 years, strong as we continue to cement our climb out of the global economic recession. Gross domestic product, GDP, sometimes a bad word for some people, as a measure of economic output, was EC $863 million in 2015. Although we are not yet back to a peak level of economic output, which was EC $959 million in 2007. We are seeing the requisite growth in our critical sectors that will allow us to surpass that peak to control sustained growth. Mr. Speaker, allow me a moment to highlight in brief a few key economic developments in our sectors. In the past year, the most significant economic sectors in terms of their contribution to economic activity were hotels and restaurants, real estate, renting and business activities, financial intermediation, transport, storage and communications, and public administration, defense, and compulsory social security. Notably, Mr. Speaker, our economic mainstay, tourism, continues to drive and gainfully engage our labor force. The hotels and restaurant sector grew by 2.24% and contributed $145.5 million to our economy in 2015. The expansion of tourism as a result of a 5.25% increase in visitor arrivals over 2014. And in 2015, we saw increases in both the stayover and day tripper categories of visitors, contributing $344.6 million to our local economy. Mr. Speaker, our construction sector, while only 36% of its size in 2008, still remains a significant driver of growth and employment. In 2015, the construction sector grew by a strong 7.6%, following exceptionally high growth of 38.1% in the previous year, that's 2014. The slowing of growth relative to 2014 was expected. However, as many of the major tourism projects did their heavy lifting in the previous year, this is to be expected. Opportunely, the continued construction at Zeri Beach, Manoa, The Reef, at Cuisinart, and Soleil, as well as public sector investment projects, kept the construction sector in Anguilla not merely afloat, but expanding in 2015. This is significant as we continue to recognize that in order for recovery to continue, we must ensure that construction activity remains in our island. Even beyond the growth in those pivotal sectors, it is heartening to report that our economy recorded an encouraging expansion in all of our major economic sectors. Retail, renting, and business activities grew by 2.25%. Transport, storage, and communication grew by 4.57%. Public administration, defense, and compulsory social security grew by 4.18%. Financial intermediation grew by 4.79%. This explains the overall 2.81% expansion experienced in our economy last year. In 2016, we anticipate another year of compounding growth for Anguilla, with a growth expectation of 4.3%. Real growth gives us a real reason to celebrate and realign as we take Anguilla forward. Fiscal review, Mr. Speaker. Having reviewed the state of our economy, we will now focus on government's 2016 fiscal position. This involves a review of recurrent revenue relative to recurrent expenditure, and combining this with capital revenue and capital expenditure to give a true picture of the government's overall fiscal balance. Debt payments are taken into consideration. Mr. Speaker, despite recording a third year of consecutive economic growth, government continues to operate within tight fiscal constraints. This year, we are particularly challenged given the increase of our debt obligations. However, Mr. Speaker, I'm proud to say that in the true Anguillian fashion, we have met all our debt obligations for 2016. Recurrent revenue. Mr. Speaker, it is anticipated that recurrent revenue in 2016 will total $198.48 million EC dollars. If realized, it will represent an increase of $7.44 million or 3.89% over the 2015 outturn, when $191 million was collected. Mr. Speaker, the major contributors to recurrent revenue remain unchanged in 2016 from previous years. Import duty other continues to be the largest revenue contributor, with collections projected to yield $45.81 million. Mr. Speaker, accommodation tax, the second largest revenue earner, is expected to total $19.28 million. This represents a 5.18% increase over 2015 collections of $18.33 million. Customs surcharge continues to be a significant revenue earner. Projections indicate that collections will total $1 million compared to the budget estimate of $16.62 million. Import duty, fuel, and gas is projected to total $15.35 million, and the interim stabilization levy is projected to total $14.49 million. Mr. Speaker, in 2016, recurrent expenditure is expected to total $188.3 million. This is $40 million less than the budget estimate of $202 million and $580,000 more when compared to 2015. Mr. Speaker, I take no pleasure in reporting these expenditure figures, as it is an indication that several planned activities had to be delayed for future implementation. And we all know that there is greater uncertainty the further we move into the future. With that being said, Mr. Speaker, this also signals that we are fiscally responsible as a government, making the tough decisions and only expending what can be afforded. Recurrent balance. The recurrent balance for 2016, the difference between recurrent revenue and recurrent expenditure, is projected to be a surplus of $10.16 million. That's the recurrent balance, just to be clear. Capital expenditure. Mr. Speaker, capital expenditure for 2016 expected to total $13.6 million. This represents 51% of what was budgeted for, a total of $26.5 million in 2016. Mr. Speaker, while the rate of capital expenditure indicates significant improvement relative to the performance of recent years, enthusiasm must be tempered by the fact that the majority of the expenditure has taken place across a few, albeit critical, project areas. Many areas are left unaddressed as a result of ongoing financial challenges. And unfortunately, we have been unable to start the next phase of the Valley Primary School development or to contribute significantly to the capital needs of the Health Authority or to pursue any new road developments. These are important projects, national projects, with nationwide impacts. And Mr. Speaker, we must be concerned about our inability to cope with those given the constraints of the budget. Mr. Speaker, to focus on the positive and key accomplishments during 2016. They include the establishment of the Customs Department's K-9 unit in support of inspections and as a deterrent to criminal activity, some minor education developments, and key to providing an environment conducive to our children's learning and well-being, the establishment of the Dove 2 Center to cater for children with severe disabilities, and the completion of the Powerhouse Supported Steps survey looking at the prevalence of chronic diseases in Anguilla. These are some of the key accomplishments of 2016 on the capital side. I take this moment, Mr. Speaker, to acknowledge the contribution of the UK government in 3 areas of capital development that we have been able to advance. They are the telecommunications tower replacement, and the start of the fire service development project that comprises the development of the fire hall and air traffic control tower. These were both financed by the balance of the UK grant received in 2013. Additionally, the UK government's permission facilitated a private financing initiative by the Anguilla Roads Windward Roads project to undertake the necessary repairs and rehabilitation of Road Bay Jetty. We applaud the support of the UK government, and we applaud the initiative taken by our homegrown entrepreneur, Anguilla Roads. Capital grants. Mr. Speaker, in 2016, capital grants total $5.58 million from the UK government in support, EC dollars, in support of closing out the implementation of the Adrian T. Hazel School Development and other minor education projects. This also included the start of implementation on the telecommunications tower replacement project, in the Fire Services Development Project, which is the construction of the new fire hall and air traffic control tower. Government also received 120 EC dollars, 1,000 EC dollars from PAHO for the implementation of the STEPS survey. Capital balance. The capital grants in cash and in kind total 5.7 million, and capital expenditure is expected to total 13.6 million EC dollars. This translates into a deficit of $7.9 million. This was financed by funds from the Catastrophic Risk Insurance Facility, known as CRIF, payout received in November of 2014, drawdowns for the CDB loan in support of the development of the Anguilla Community College, and private financing in support of the repairs to the Road Bridge jetty and other recurrent surpluses. The overall balance, Mr. Speaker, which includes capital and recurrent. The 2016 overall balance takes into account the recurrent balance, the capital balance, and financing. The recurrent balance is projected to be 10.616 million, and the capital account balance is projected to be a deficit of 7.9 million. When financing of 4.15 million is included, the overall balance of 6.41 million is realized. Mr. Speaker, it does not end there. While we have recorded a surplus of 6.41 million above the line, principal payments of 18.97 million were made. When these are taken into consideration, government's true fiscal position is a deficit of 12.56 million. To be able to meet the payments, 11.81 million of reserves were utilized. Debt report. Mr. Speaker, prudent management of public debt aims to minimize borrowing costs, ensure timely debt service payments, and keep risk at acceptable levels. This is in keeping with our debt management objectives. My government aims to attain a sustainable debt profile over the medium to long term, consistent with the Fiscal Responsibility Act of 2013. Anguilla has an unblemished record of never defaulting on its debt obligations, and under this government's watch, we are determined to maintain this record. With that being said, I will now provide a brief overview of the debt position. Mr. Speaker, preliminary estimates show Anguilla's public sector debt stock at the end of 2016 stood at $419.24 million. That is 45.45% of GDP, which would represent a 97.09% increase over the 2015 debt stock of $212.7 million, or 24.7% of GDP. Of the outstanding debt for the period under review, central government debt accounted for 97.07% of the portfolio, while the remaining 2.93% was accredited to government guarantees comprising of loans for the Anguilla Development Board, the Anguilla Tourist Board, the Anguilla Air Seaports Authority. During the fiscal year 2016, the government proposed new borrowing totaling $325 million in support of resolving the banking crisis. New borrowing and disbursements contracted for the fiscal year total EC $216.85 million, and central government accounted for $214 million, which represented the Anguilla Social Security Board promissory note to aid a resolution of the banking crisis by safeguarding Anguilla Social Security funds deposited by the former indigenous banks NBA and CCB. There was a disbursement of $150,000 on the Anguilla Community College project loan contracted in 2014 from the Caribbean Development Bank. To date, approximately $300,000 has been disbursed on this loan. Government guaranteed debt accounted for the remaining $2.7 million incurred by the Anguilla ANC Ports Authority to facilitate repairs to the Road Bay jetty. The difference in the proposed borrowing and actual borrowing, EC 111 million, was because of outstanding transactions to be finalized in relation to the approved $59 million from CDB to assist with the banking resolution, that is the bridge back capitalization loan, and the $52 million Depositors Protection Trust bond, both of which should materialize in 2017. Over the last 2 years, debt servicing costs have risen due to the increase in new debt. The expiration of the moratorium on the CDB policy-based loan in the last quarter of 2015, and the use of the ECCB cash advance facility and the overdraft facility at the National Commercial Bank of Anguilla. This government stands committed to managing this increasing cost through prudent debt management. Mr. Speaker, in accordance with the framework for fiscal sustainability and development, the government of Anguilla was required to be in full compliance with the borrowing limits by the end of 2017. However, with the UK government approved borrowing in support of the banking resolution, the compliance date has been extended to 2025. The borrowing limits include the net debt and debt service ratios, which should not exceed 80% and 10% of recurrent revenue, respectively, and liquid assets should be sufficient to cover 90 days or 25% of recurrent expenditure. End-of-year projections, however, show that the net debt ratios stand at 199.35% and the debt service at 15.18% and liquid reserves at 8.2%, or roughly 30 days. Recurrent expenditure. Mr. Speaker, the 2017 estimates of revenue and expenditure estimate an overall expenditure, including principal repayments, of $235,943,580. Mr. Speaker, the recurrent expenditure for the fiscal year 2017 is estimated at $211.96 million without amortization. This is a 4.8% increase over the 2016 fiscal year of 2002. Fiscal year of EC $202 million. This increase over the 2016 budget is attributable to a number of government undertakings across the various budget economic classifications. Personal emoluments will increase from $87.3 million to $88.63 million. This is a slight increase of 1.5%, increase largely due to the filling of positions in vital areas such as the Anguilla Fire Services, Customs, Inland Revenue, and others. Of course, the Anguilla Fire Services to meet the requirements for the category of the airport. Retiring benefits will increase from $10.34 million to $10.76 million, or 4% increase, to facilitate the additional retirees in 2017. Interest payments increased from $15.59 million to $17.44 million, which is the largest increase of 11.18%. This increase in interest payments is primarily to deal with new debt contracted in relation to the banking resolution and the project disbursements on the Anguilla Community College. Goods and services increased by $45.16 million to $49.3 million, or 9.2% increase over 2016. This increase is chiefly due to training, insurance, maintenance services, and supplies and materials. Lastly, current transfers which consists of disbursements to statutory bodies, increased from 43.93 million to 45.8 million. This 4% increase is largely due to public assistance, health services, community and youth initiatives, and sports. Mr. Speaker, I will now outline in some detail the expenditure allotment by ministry and departments, as well as the ongoing and new initiatives of our ministries for the 2017 year. The Governor and departments. In 2017, recurrent expenditure for the Governor's office and departments is $30.5 million EC dollars. Mr. Speaker, this is a 5.8% increase over 2016 approved estimate of $28.8 million. This overall increase is mainly as a result of training in public administration and increases in the size of the public public sector establishment. Public administration. Public administration, in collaboration with the Department of Information and Technology, successfully implemented the first phase of Common Office, which is an automated online system. To date, a number of human resource processes have been digitized. The next phase in the process is the recruitment module, which should be implemented by January 2017. Public administration also collaborated with the Governor's Office to conduct the second service-wide formal Employee Recognition Award ceremony. 6 awards were presented across categories, including Outstanding Customer Services, Above and Beyond the Call of Duty, and Public Servant of the Year. Acting on the results of the Civil Service People Survey of 2015, public administration has focused on training to address the skill gaps, to allow leaders to reflect on their practice and to build leadership capability in the Anguilla Public Service. A total of 31 training sessions across 32 ministries and departments was conducted from September 2016 to November 2016. 5 remaining departments, including teachers, will receive this training as well in 2017. The Ministry of Home Affairs. The Ministry of Home Affairs has a 2017 recurrent expenditure of $7.32 million, a very minuscule increase over the 2000 approved budget of $71.31 million. $7.3 million, $31 million. The main focus of the Ministry of Home Affairs in 2017 will be the development of a new constitution and reform of the electoral process. Department of Labor. The implementation of a modern labor code will continue to be the main priority of the Department of Labor in 2017. This, it is hoped, will adequately address employment issues in Anguilla and also enhance the services offered by reviewing current practices and ensuring the use of best practice. And I'm sure that you will have seen the number of consultations taking place throughout Anguilla. The Minister of Labor and Home Affairs will expand on these issues, as will other ministers on their departments, which I may mention in this address. Radio Anguilla will continue to provide a critical voice in the national interest, ever mindful of the need to provide fair, accurate, and balanced coverage of the people of Anguilla at home and abroad. Radio Anguilla intends to play a lead role in the dissemination of information on next year's 50th anniversary of the Anguilla Revolution. The Department of Environment. Their key national programs will continue in 2017, focus on enabling sustainable national development. These will include, but are not limited to, the CDB-funded program entitled Building Effective Governance for the Land Use Planning and Environmental Management in Anguilla. Timely and responsive legislative amendments that aid development are critical to ensure the sustainable economic advancement of our island. Likewise, the finalization of the Anguilla National Ecosystem Assessment Project, ANEA, towards a green economy, which has provided a framework for our National Development Plan. Department of Immigration. In keeping with the Immigration Department's operational plan, Management intends to continue improving the human resources within the department by ensuring that officers receive the relevant training as it relates to their job, upgrade the computerized system so as to provide more efficiency in the processing of passengers at the ports of entry. Improving public awareness by creating a Facebook page is another initiative of the department for 2017. Additionally, the department will continue its effectiveness of illegal immigrant monitoring, detection, and interception to increase use of technology, increase patrolling and operations within the task force section. This will ensure that the security of the island remains paramount. Officers at the ports of entry will continue to provide excellent customer service and remain true ambassadors for Angola as a tourist destination. The Ministry of Finance, Economic Development, Investment, Commerce, Tourism, Lands and Surveys, and Physical Planning. The recurrent 2017 estimate for the Ministry of Finance is 76.79 million, a 6% increase over 2016 approved budget of 72.47 million. Mr. Speaker, the major increases are due to retiring benefits, which has an increase of 1.6 million to facilitate retiring police officers in 2017. Also, there's an increase of 684,000 in insurance and 575,000 increase in domestic debt service payments. Additionally, there will be increases in personal emoluments in the Inland Revenue and Custom Departments, which are necessary for capacity building and the furtherance of the government's top revenue earning departments. Economic development, investment, commerce, and tourism. Mr. Speaker, foreign direct investment is imperative for economic development in Angola, and the government will continue to pursue appropriate foreign direct investment in the 2017 National Development Agenda, using policies carefully designed to ensure that the benefits are distributed throughout our island. The government has recently negotiated an amended MOU with Altima to expand the project to include a marina and luxury real estate component. The government continues to earnestly negotiate for the renovation and expansion of the Captain Luke property and has recently finalized a new MOU with the intended developers. These projects are scheduled to commence in the first quarter of 2017 and are anticipated to significantly boost activity in the economy, particularly in the construction industry. For 2017 budget, the government will pursue the following economic stimulus measures, which are designed to support economic growth and revitalize the real estate and construction sectors. You should take note. 1, the reduction of stamp duty under the Stamp Duty Act, effective the 1st of January 2017. Belongers only. The government of Angola will reduce the applicable stamp duty on transfers from 5% to 2.5%. This reduction will remain in effect for 3 years. I repeat, beginning January 1st, 2017, belongers only. The government of Angola will reduce applicable stamp duty on transfers from 5% to 2.5%. This reduction will remain in effect for a period of 3 years. 2, reduce stamp duty under the Alien Land Holding License Regulations Act. Effective the 1st of January 2017, that is next year, the government of Angola will reduce the applicable stamp duty on alien land holding licenses from 12.5% to 5% for built development and 6.25% for vacant land. This reduction will remain in effect for 2 years, and non-belongers who purchase property will be granted an 11-month visitor stamp payable at the time of payment of the alien land holding license fees, to be renewed for the same term on an annual basis. And third, the ministry is currently designing a scheme to increase the affordability of home ownership in Anguilla and to generate activity in the construction sector. This scheme is being designed to ensure that our local businesses continue to be patronized, yet at the same time can benefit from such an initiative. The scheme is expected to be finalized by the first quarter of 2017. Mr. Speaker, while trying to attract and facilitate investment in Anguilla, we have to be mindful of the race to the bottom. When concessions are used as tools to incentivize investment. As such, the Ministry is currently reviewing and implementing other means of attracting investment into our jurisdiction, including a concession and incentives policy, streamlining our investment processes, and development and implementation of a national investment promotion strategy. The government continues to consider and design an economic residency program that is appropriate for Anguilla. Regionally, such schemes have generated significant economic activity, and similar is envisioned for Anguilla. We expect this within the first quarter of 2017. The Anguilla Commercial Registry. Mr. Speaker, as the global economy continues to be less accommodating of international financial centers, Anguilla must position and maintain itself as a place to do cross-border business. Anguilla remains committed to being a well-regulated and transparent financial services sector so as to maintain its appeal to the participants. Mr. Speaker, the development of the ACON system some 18 years ago which provides for online registration and management of companies 24 hours a day, every day, has given Anguilla the ability to reduce many of the costs associated with international finance. ACON is the gateway for Anguilla to remain a vibrant player in international financial services, and we are committed to the improvements and upgrades of the ACON platform and the rollout of a new beneficial ownership register. I expect that these initiatives will help us, Mr. Speaker, to improve our offerings in the financial service industry and secure Anguilla's future. The Department of Lands and Surveys. The Department of Lands and Surveys in the coming year will be launching its official website as it aims to continue to review and improve its land policies. The department is also pursuing the establishment of the island's first global positioning system, continuously operating reference station into a more accurate and user-friendly system. The Ministry of Social Development, and of course, as I said, the Minister of Social Development will expand on this when he gets that opportunity. The Ministry of Social Development has a 2017 recurrent budget of $79.28 million, or 3% increase over 2016 approved budget of $76.93 million. This increase is due to $500,000 increase in the Health Authority subvention, an increase of $543 in public assistance, and increases in social undertakings that the ministry plans to continue in 2017. Some highlights under this ministry are as follows. Education. The Ministry of Education remains committed to the mission for education and endeavors to provide quality education through highly motivated and competent educators. With the completion of the new strategy for 2015 to 2020, entitled Education and Training for a Better Future, Vision to 2020, the path is set for initiatives for focus over the next 5 years. This year has seen the laying of the foundation for initiatives in all the subsectors of the education system. At early childhood, this is being done through initiatives such as the institutionalizing of the standards for the regulations of early childhood services. At primary school and secondary level, one of the areas of focus is the improvement of numeracy competencies. One initiative to address this aspect is the continuous professional development of our teachers in numeracy skills. TVET is also a critical area of focus for human capital development. That's the Technical and Vocational Education Center. the necessary infrastructure is being put in place to ensure that the appropriate provision is made to competently address the relevant curriculum needs. In sports, Mr. Speaker, the Department of Sports held its first ever expo with the theme, A Renewed Focus on Sports Development. As part of the week of activities, 3 of Anguilla's sports pioneers were inducted to the first Sports Hall of Fame. The first ever International Tennis Foundation tournament was held at the Anguilla Tennis Academy, attracting participants from over 20 countries. This initiative has the potential to generate significant benefits for the island in terms of sports tourism. Along these lines, we also look forward to hosting the Leeward Islands Basketball Association tournament, which is scheduled to take place later this month. In 2017, Mr. Speaker, the community sports program will be intensified in an effort to enhance social cohesion and improve health benefits throughout the island. The organization of village festivals and traditional games are a priority in 2017. Youth and culture, Mr. Speaker. The Department of Youth and Culture continues to promote and strengthen efforts geared at improving and advancing the general well-being and empowerment of our young people in Anguilla, and the preservation and promotion of the island's cultural heritage. 2017 marks the 10th anniversary since the department was established. A comprehensive list of activities and events are planned to highlight and celebrate the work of the department over the years. And youth employment remains a primary focus of the department in 2017. The department's 3 principal youth employment programs, the Job Link Up program, the Anguilla Get Set program, that is the entrepreneurial program, and the Youth Exposure program, continue to effectively transition young people to sustainable full employment. The department will pursue the establishment of the Anguilla Youth Business Trust in 2017, a public-private, not-for-profit entity to house the Anguilla Get Set entrepreneurial program and provide ongoing services to young entrepreneurs. Work continues in the area of culture and arts preservation, development, and promotion. 2 major ongoing projects are scheduled to be completed in 2017. The revision of Anguilla or Island textbook and the establishment of an artist registry. Partners advancing for violence eradication, PAVE, Mr. Speaker. In 2017, this organization made significant strides in addressing crime and violence through a UNDP-supported program. The ministry's efforts to tackle crime and violence will be intensified in 2017 with the implementation of key activities, including the development of a database for crime statistics, the launch of a literacy, numeracy, ICT program to support vulnerable members of our adult population who exhibit low literacy, numeracy, ICT levels, and the implementation of reintegration programs to support residents of Zenaida Haven and Her Majesty's Prison after they are released. The Anguilla Community College. Mr. Speaker, the Anguilla Community College introduced a number of new programs during this academic year to strengthen the human resource and technical skills capacity of Anguilla. Despite many challenges, we continue to push for increased programming that caters to community needs. Beginning in September 2017, the college will be adding the BTEC Level 3 qualifications in operations and maintenance engineering, project managing and construction sector, hospitality studies, and Level 2 qualifications in applied information technology and business studies for the technical 6th form level. The technical vocational 6th form program previously offered at the Albion Lake Hodge Comprehensive School has been transferred to the Anguilla Community College. There are 2 streams, hospitality and construction studies. The National Chronic Disease Unit. Mr. Speaker, the Ministry of Social Development made considerable strides in the fight against non-communicable diseases in 2017, beginning with the finalization and approval of the National Action Plan, National NCD Action Plan. Major initiatives in the national chronic disease surveillance include the completion of fieldwork for the STEPS and Global School Health surveys, which assess non-communicable diseases risk factors in adult and school-age children, respectively. And in 2016, also saw the launch of the FIT Team program, originally conceived by Results Driven Fitness Center. This collaborative initiative seeks to increase healthy lifestyles in teens in the areas of diet, physical activity, and psychosocial well-being. The Health Authority of Anguilla. In 2016, the Health Authority of Anguilla moved closer to assuring compliance with the Health Authority of Anguilla Act, with financial statements signed off by the Chief Auditor for the years 2009 to 2013. The 2014 statements are in final draft, and the 2015 audit has commenced. A primary health care initiative was launched during 2016 aimed at providing and improving access to primary care. The objective is to focus on preventative care while reducing health care costs associated with curative care. Pharmacy services were introduced at the Welch's Polyclinic, along with enhanced dental services. And 2017 will bring a continued focus on improving the quality of services, with major efforts already underway to increase the efficiency and effectiveness of healthcare delivery mechanisms. Department of Probation. The staff of the Department of Probation and related agencies benefited from two major training opportunities in 2016, funded by UNICEF. One on the OECS draft Model Child Justice Bill, as well as a risk assessment and mental health screening tool. The Department of Social Development. Mr. Speaker, the Department of Social Development remained true to the goal of working in partnership. Existing bonds were strengthened and others forged in meeting the needs of the vulnerable, especially children. Financial and other contributions from corporate citizens continue to supplement the department's limited budgetary allocation for services. Ongoing programs to combat child abuse and other forms of violence continue. The follow-up of the Break the Silence campaign funded by UNICEF, DFID, and UK Aid continue in 2016 with the execution of a national stakeholder roundtable discussions, a presentation of research findings on bullying in the primary schools, and the publication of a research paper memorializing the outputs of the National Anti-Bullying Campaign Initiative today. Much progress has been made with the OECS family law reform legislation in the area of child maintenance and parenting and testing skills, testing bills. The enactment of the Social Protection Act, which authorizes assistance to vulnerable and needy families, has proven effective. Mr. Speaker, the spiraling demand for assistance with medical services reveals that the health of the nation's people remains critical. In 2016, the government's contribution to date for local medical treatment is almost $4 million. The challenge is for all individuals to adopt a lifestyle of personal responsibility and a commitment to self-empowerment. The Ministry of Infrastructure. Mr. Speaker, the current budget for the Ministry of Infrastructure is $18.03 million, an 8.3% increase over the 2016 approved budget of $16.66 million. This increase is attributable mainly to an increase in personal emoluments in the ministry and its departments. The Ministry of Infrastructure, Communications, Utility, Housing, Agriculture, Fisheries, and Information Technology has continued its work despite the challenges of scarce financial resources to address critical needs and other issues. A priority for the ministry is to address the transportation mandate in 2017 through the strengthening of aviation, maritime, and road portfolios. As far as the Department of Agriculture, Mr. Speaker, It has completed the critical sectoral strategic plans for agriculture and conducted public consultations for the National Agricultural Strategic Plan. The Department of Agriculture will commence implementation of the plan in 2017 with the use of farmland in the Valley Bottom to encourage food production by local farmers and provide support for egg producers by reducing their costs of production. The Department of Fisheries and Maritime Resources completed its sectoral strategic plan and conducted public consultations on the Maritime Parks and Fisheries Development Plan. The department also completed a desk study on agriculture's Anguilla's exclusive fishing zone, but the work of the Department of Fisheries is significantly impacted by the lack of a vessel. The department was successful in securing funding for 4 projects from Darwin and BEST programs over the period 2016 to 2019. The projects will bring about working collaboration between the Department of Fisheries, local, regional, and international environmental agencies. And in 2017, the focus will be on investments in the fishing industry through implementation of special partnership agreements for foreign industrial fishing. Such a development could lead to the doubling of the contribution of fishing to the island's gross domestic product. Department of Information Technology and E-Government Services. The modernization and digitalization of public services through DITES have continued through system upgrades. DITES has also embarked on migrating government services to the cloud and has already completed the migration of email system that intends to roll out Microsoft 365 solutions to all departments. The goal is to make public services smarter and more accessible. The department is also engaged in a desktop replacement program through virtualization and desktop as service technology. This endeavor has the potential to save the government of Anguilla scarce resources, both through more cost-effective IT equipment and energy efficiency. The Department of Infrastructure played a critical role in the securing of funds for the repairs to the jetty and for the proposed new jetty. The lack of aggressive maintenance of public infrastructure over the last 8 years means that a significant portion of the infrastructure, including roads, has to be rebuilt or replaced. The Department of Infrastructure continues to work with the scarce resources to undertake the basic maintenance of public infrastructure of roads and building, and hopefully with the engagement of the infrastructure advisor, we'll be able to really modernize Anguilla's infrastructure. The Anguilla Fire and Rescue Service. The Anguilla Fire and Rescue Service continues to operate under the most difficult of situations, and with donated equipment that is older than most of the younger officers. They have shown the true spirit of what it means to be Anguillan, to be proud and committed to ensure that the aerodrome remains open. Without the aerodrome, Anguilla's tourism product and Anguillans returning to Anguilla will be severely impacted. And that is why this government is committed to ensuring that the fire station is completed and the fire service is provided with the necessary equipment and training to meet the aviation requirements. Recurrent revenue. Mr. Speaker, the revenue estimate for 2017 is $214.89 million, EC, which represents an 8.2% increase over the 2016 projections of $198.48 million. This projection is based on economic growth expectations of 4.3% and improvements in tax administration and compliance. Mr. Speaker, there will be no new taxes implemented in 2017. I might repeat that. Mr. Speaker, there will be no new taxes implemented for 2017. Mr. Speaker, I will now provide the 2017 recurrent revenue composition. 32.3% of total revenue is projected to come from duties and is estimated to a total of 69.5 million. Taxes on domestic goods and services that accounted for 23.3%, 2% of revenue, is estimated to be 49.77 million. Of that total, accommodation tax accounts for 19.85 million and stamp duty 11 million. The interim stabilization levy will remain and is expected to generate 15.4 million. Tax on property is estimated at 7 million. Taxes on international trade and transactions continue to be a major source of revenue. And in 2017, anticipated collections are 20.62 million, or 9.6% of recurrent revenues. Non-tax revenues account for 32.67 million, or 15.2%, of which fees, fines, and permits account for 22.81 million. Mr. Speaker, let me take this opportunity to thank all taxpayers who honor their tax obligations for 2016. We are mindful of the financial challenges business entities and individuals are currently facing. However, we are encouraging taxpayers to visit the Inland Revenue Department to make arrangements to settle outstanding tax obligations. Mr. Speaker, the government is committed to fulfilling its promise to implement a comprehensive fiscal reform program. One initiative this administration intends to aggressively pursue is the permanent residency for investment regime in an effort to diversify which is intended in an effort to diversify our means of generating income and stimulating our economy. Capital revenue. For 2017, it is estimated, Mr. Speaker, to 47.7 million and comprises the following components. Approximately 10.5 million of EDF funds, 21 million from the UK government, and the sale of Anglic shares are expected to net 16.2 million. The capital budget. The proposed capital budget for 2017 is $44.3 million. Mr. Speaker, the UK government is once again at the forefront of providing support for specific areas of capital development. EC 17 million of these funds include confirmed UK grant allocations that will finance phase 2 of the Road Bay jetty, and also preparation for a long sought after much needed national development plan or vision for the next 20 years and beyond. Mr. Speaker, this project is still under consideration in terms of the longer term vision of Anguilla. Their support also extends to the provision of an infrastructure advisor that will, for a period of 2 years in the first instance, focus on the new Road Bay jetty and redevelopment of projects at the Kirtland Droid International Airport and the Blowing Point Ferry Terminal. The infrastructural advisor will also coordinate the development of a national infrastructure development plan, which upon completion will attract additional UK funds for critical infrastructure projects. Mr. Speaker, we are also advancing requests for further assistance from the UK government to support complete the fire service development project, and also in the development of the beneficial ownership system. This system facilitates the UK law enforcement and tax authorities' information requirements for the purposes of enforcing money laundering regulations. It must be noted that all of these individual requests are part of a wider request that was made to former UK Prime Minister Cameron and OT's Ministers Doddridge and Simmons for a substantial envelope of multi-year support for various areas of capital development. Mr. Speaker, the long-awaited start of construction of the Anguilla Community College is imminent, so it will be full steam ahead in the development of what will no doubt emerge as a center of learning and excellence on our educational landscape. We'll hear more specifics about that later. Overall, Mr. Speaker, the 2017 capital budget features a limited scale back set of projects reflective of our financing constraints. The focus is on the existing commitments of ongoing projects and critical issues, such as meeting the requirements of the Caribbean Examination Council's implementation of online administration of examinations from 2017. The newest project featured is the school cafeteria project. We will pilot the establishment of cafeterias at schools in order to provide hot, nutritious meals, not only to those in need, but accessible to all students who are willing and able to pay. Mr. Speaker, it is clear that the advancement of the education sector continues to give and be given a priority with programming of the EDF 11 program fund, scheduled to support the implementation of Anguilla's education development plan. As previously communicated, approximately $41 million has been allocated to Anguilla for the 11th Urban Development Fund period, 2015 to 2020. The first tranche of $10.5 million is scheduled for disbursement in 2017. And the areas for support include the master planning and redevelopment of the Albion Lake Hodge Comprehensive School and development of the TVET program. Mr. Speaker, these continue to be trying financial times. And when I speak of our plans for capital development, I always close with an admonishment and a reminder. A reminder, Mr. Speaker, that we cannot be content to restrict our development as a nation for the sake of saving a few dollars, balancing a budget, and building reserves, no matter how necessary these goals appear to be. When it comes to capital development, Mr. Speaker, there is another side to the coin of fiscal prudence. It has the potential to be ugly and tragic, and it looks a lot like crumbling schools, a hospital with failing equipment, inadequate roads, and other economic infrastructures, all of which hampers our progress as a nation and the impetus to truly recover and help ourselves in a sustainable manner. Mr. Speaker, the staff in the Ministry of Finance, permanent secretaries, heads of departments, and other technical officers throughout the service work extremely hard during the preparation of the annual budget estimates. This is a process that begins in late July and August, and they work through up until moments before I arrive here in this honorable house. I will take this opportunity to thank them for the brilliant job they have been doing across administrations, but I am personally grateful for the special attention I feel from their service. Despite their dedicated participation, Mr. Speaker, however, whatever criticisms regarding the budget that become the subject of political debate and discussion, our government takes full responsibility for its content. As I said last year, we will never throw anyone under the bus simply to divert blame for the assumptions and decisions that go into this process. As I said earlier in this presentation, Mr. Speaker, the airwaves continue to be inundated with purveyors of gloom and doom. And there are persons who relish in these messages simply to remain relevant. In fact, they have absolutely no problem using gossip, fear-mongering, and their own fabrications to perpetrate their particular agendas. We know that in taking on the tough decisions necessary to achieve what is in the best interest of Anguilla, there will be hardships. But we are also convinced that to do nothing will be exponentially worse. There is seldom gain without pain. Such pain is why we are celebrating 50 years of modern Anguilla today. The Anguillians of that period were prepared to endure such sacrifice to achieve the vision of a new Anguilla, proud, strong, and free. Mr. Speaker, our strength of character is not necessarily manifest when life is on the upstroke. Our true character comes up when there are challenges and we are down. At that juncture, We must not cower and lie down, but stand up courageously so that we again can reach the stars. That is the place where we are now. We are standing up. We are standing up, Mr. Speaker, but as Anguillians, we must also fight back. We fought back after the recession of 2001, and the fight back is once again on during these tough economic times. Mr. Speaker, I refuse to be a part of the conversation that spells doom and gloom for Anguilla, because that is not what winners do. Winners seek to refocus, reset, and as the theme suggests, realignment as a positive move. The wheels may have become wobbly, but we have the competence to get them right again. But Mr. Speaker, we are not starting from scratch because we have many successes on which to build. Of course, certain outcomes have not been as we anticipated, but such is God's plan, and with a solid faith, in the end, we will understand. Life is not an exact science, and we must never fool ourselves into pretending that it is. And let us also refrain from becoming experts after the fact. That shines absolutely no reflection on our competence. The task before us was to realign the path to the vision. Even as we celebrate our achievements over the past 50 years, Mr. Speaker, yes, Mr. Speaker, celebration and realignment is the theme. So let me conclude, Mr. Speaker, by thanking all of you in the gallery who have graced us with your presence today and have politely and patiently endured this lengthy presentation. I also express similar sentiments to those persons who may be in the comfort of their homes or other convenient places. May you all be blessed with a wonderful Christmas and a bright, healthy, and prosperous 2017 when it comes. Mr. Speaker, I beg to move.
Thank you, Minister of Finance. It has been moved and seconded that the 2017 appropriation bill be read a second time. At our meeting on the 12th, the debate should be the 12th, is it? Yes. The meeting on the 12th of December, we will invite debate on the merits and principles of this bill. And also, tomorrow at 9:30, we'll have a meeting here at the House of Assembly, an emergency meeting. And I also want to thank our guests, our well-behaved guests, for being with us today. And I thank you for coming, and I hope we can see you more often in numbers. Thank you.
Adjournment.
Mr. Speaker, I thank the members of this honorable House and the members of the gallery for being so patient. I reiterate that my thanks to them, my gratitude. Mr. Speaker, this House stands adjourned. I move that this House stands adjourned until tomorrow, Tuesday, the 6th of December, the 5th, the 6th of December at 9:30 before noon. And I would hope, Mr. Speaker, we intend that it should be a very brief meeting with the support of members of this honorable House. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to second that.
Yes. It has been moved and seconded that this House be now adjourned until tomorrow morning 9:30. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it. This House